Are piranhas really as deadly as people think? A swirling vortex of razor teeth, a school of flesh-eating monsters that can strip a cow to the bone in under a minute. This is the piranha Hollywood, and a certain US president wanted you to fear. But what if I told you that the terrifying global image of the piranha was built on a single, century-old lie? Now, hundreds of piranha bites reported in South America every year, but the number of people who actually die from them is shockingly low. The truth is way more surprising than the fiction. So what happens when people and piranhas cross paths? Let's look at the real story, the terrifying legend. The piranha has one of the scariest reputations on the planet. Just the name conjures up images of Amazonian rivers boiling over with a frenzy of teeth and fury. We've all seen the movies. Some poor animal, or worse, a person, falls into the water. The surface churns for a few frantic seconds, and then silence. All that's left is a skeleton, picked clean. This is the legend of the piranha, a merciless, indiscriminate killing machine with an insatiable appetite. The story goes that they're the barracudas of the river, hunting in organized packs, drawn into a homicidal madness by a single drop of blood. This image is so potent that scientists literally named a flesh-dissolving mixture of acid piranha solution. Talk about strong branding. But is any of it true? Does the science actually back up this Hollywood horror story? To find the answer, we have to rewind the clock. The origin of the myth, the Roosevelt connection, the piranha's monstrous reputation? You can pretty much thank one very famous person for that, former US President Theodore Roosevelt. Back in 1913, Roosevelt went on a huge expedition through the Brazilian wilderness. His local guides, eager to impress their adventurous guest, decided to put on a little bit of theater for him. They led him to a tributary of the Amazon River, but before he got there, they had spent weeks setting the stage. They blocked off a section of the river, trapping thousands of piranhas. Then, they starved them for days, making sure the fish were stressed out and absolutely desperate. When the president and his crew finally arrived, the guides warned him to stay away from the deadly water. Then, for the grand finale, they pushed a cow into the enclosed part of the river. The result was pure, orchestrated chaos. The starving, cornered fish swarmed the cow in a spectacular feeding frenzy, stripping the carcass with terrifying speed. Roosevelt wasn't watching natural piranha behavior. He was watching a show, a carefully staged event designed for maximum shock value. And Roosevelt, completely unaware he'd been duped, bought it hook, line, and sinker. In his 1914 bestseller, Through the Brazilian Wilderness, he called piranhas the most ferocious fish in the world, and wrote, "Blood in the water excites them to madness." His vivid account cemented the myth in Western culture. For over 100 years, that single, faked event has defined this fish, creating a legend that's way more powerful than the truth. The scientific reality, diet, behavior, and the truth about feeding frenzies. So if they aren't Roosevelt's mindless monsters, what are piranhas really like? Well, for starters, they're omnivores. Their diet is surprisingly varied. They'll eat other fish, sure, but also insects, seeds, fruits, and even leaves. They're also big on carrion, dead animals, which makes them a vital river cleanup crew. Think of them less as assassins and more as opportunistic, swimming Swiss Army knives. And that terrifying feeding frenzy? It turns out we've had it completely backward. Piranhas don't school up to hunt together. They school up for the exact opposite reason, for protection from being hunted. In the Amazon, piranhas are on the menu for river dolphins, caimans, and giant fish like the pirarucu. Sticking together is just a defensive strategy to avoid being someone else's lunch. That frenzy Roosevelt saw? It's a total stress response. It only happens when the fish are desperate, like being trapped and starved, or during the dry season when the water recedes and thousands of them are stuck in a small pool with no food. It's not a coordinated attack. It's a frantic, every fish for itself fight for survival. In fact, scientists who study them say piranhas are actually pretty timid fish that are easily spooked. Not exactly the monsters we were promised. Pretty wild how different the reality is from the myth, right? If you're enjoying this, do us a solid and hit that like button. It really helps more people find the truth. The real attacks, analyzing the data from South America. Now, this doesn't mean piranhas are harmless. They absolutely do bite people. Hundreds of incidents are reported across South America every year. In 2007, one lake in Brazil had 190 reported bites in just 6 months. In 2011, another series of incidents led to 100 people needing treatment. And on Christmas Day 2013, over 70 swimmers in Argentina were bitten. But here's the detail that changes everything. The huge majority of these so-called attacks are not the flesh-stripping frenzies of legend. They're almost always single, painful nips to the hands and feet. So why does it happen? The reasons are nearly always defensive or just bad luck. The number one cause? Seasonality. Attacks spike during the dry season, when low water levels trap the fish in smaller areas with less food, making them stressed and a bit bolder. Piranhas are also fiercely protective parents. They lay their eggs on the riverbed, and if a swimmer accidentally steps too close to a nest, they're likely to get a sharp, defensive warning bite. And of course, human behavior is a huge factor. Lots of splashing can attract piranhas, which might mistake the noise for a small, struggling fish. This is often why kids get nipped more than adults. Attacks are also more common, where people throw food scraps or clean fish in the water, which teaches the piranhas to associate people with food. This leads to a kind of mistaken identity, which experts think happened in a 2023 incident in Brazil, where piranhas, accustomed to being fed, started nipping at swimmers. This brings us to the big question: can a piranha attack actually be fatal? The answer is almost never. Despite hundreds of bites each year, confirmed deaths caused directly by piranhas are incredibly rare. In those few cases where a human body is found with piranha bites, investigators almost always find the person died of something else first, like drowning or a heart attack. The piranhas were just doing their job as scavengers. There have been a few tragic, outlier cases involving small children or people who were incapacitated, but even in those situations, it's often unclear if the piranhas were the primary cause of death. But let's be clear, you have to respect the bite. For its size, the piranha has one of the strongest bites of any bony fish on Earth. A black piranha can chomp down with 72 pounds of force. That's more than 30 times its own body weight. Their teeth are like tiny, interlocking razors made for slicing. A single bite can be severe and could even take off a toe or the tip of a finger. So the real danger isn't getting hunted down and stripped to the bone. The actual risk, as small as it is, comes from a perfect storm of circumstances: swimming in a piranha habitat during the dry season, splashing around their nests, or swimming where they've learned to beg for food. So the piranha is a classic case of myth versus reality. It's not the relentless, bloodthirsty monster from the movies, but a complex, often timid fish that's a key part of its ecosystem. The terrifying legend that has defined it for over a century was born from a staged theatrical performance for a president, a story that was simply too good not to believe. While their bite is undeniably powerful, the data shows they aren't man-eaters. The hundreds of yearly bites are overwhelmingly minor and defensive, a world away from the blood-crazed frenzies we imagine. So, are piranhas deadly? Under an almost impossible set of circumstances, maybe. But in reality, you are far more likely to be eaten by people than to be eaten by piranhas, as they are a common food source throughout South America. And that's a truth that's way more interesting than any Hollywood fiction. What other animal myths do you want us to bust? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more truths about the world around us.